you spoke about sacrifice in the team environment, and you said that the difference between good teams and great teams is the great teams know how to sacrifice appropriately. What does that mean in the context of performance?
Yes, I'm going to do something that's probably not podcast-like.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Xpect Performance podcast, and on the show with me today is Sharks defense coach and leadership expert Joey Mongalo. If you're interested in leadership and the science behind improving as a collective, then this episode is for you. Joey is the founder of his leadership company called Team IP3, and in this episode Joey and I cover why he doesn't like the term culture, why is identity important for the success of the collective, as well as how and when do you deliver criticism or hard truths for the betterment of the individual and of the team. This was some wonderful insight into how leadership in a team environment, in this case in rugby, can be transformed and applied into any space such as the business world and in an individual context as well. Please like, share, subscribe, and enjoy. Joey, how are you?
Clinton, good morning. Very good. Another warm summer's day or winter's day that feels like a summer's day in Durban. Beautiful.
Yeah, it is a beautiful time of year here, and it's a beautiful time in the world of rugby, and that's where your roots come from, and that's where you find yourself at the heart of now in your career. And paying attention to your background, I'd like for you to please give me some context to your life and how you find yourself where you are now.
Sure. Are you ready to sit down and listen? Can I?
I'm ready.
I'll go the full Monty.
We got nothing but time.
Brilliant. Grew up in Brits in the Northwest Province. Loved growing up there because small Afrikaans town, just innocent growing up, playing outside, throwing stones, going to the creek, that sort of thing. Raised by incredible parents. Father was a factory worker in Brits. My mother was a nursing sister, or is a nursing sister, and a brother who's 7 years older, sister who's 3 years or 4 years younger than I. Just all I've got is good memories growing up. And I remember Saturdays, PSL soccer. My brother and my father were massive Pirate supporters, and my sister, my mom and I were Chiefs supporters, so our house was separated on the big Soweto Derby day.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the love for sport came, like just this competition and where you can beat each other for 90 minutes and banter, and then after that love each other again. And that's a part of sport I really love. My dad passed away, unfortunately, in 92, 7 years old. My brother was 14, sister 3. And that's where things got a bit complex. My mother stepped up to the plate proper. She's still alive and well now, owns a couple of taxis in Brits, and she's an entrepreneur. No, she's a rock star, absolute rock star. Love her. So that was a bit of tragedy, but it's not a full stop, it's a comma, thankfully.
Yes.
So she just always said to us that, listen, it is what it is now. I'm alone. I'm raising you. So you just have to take more responsibility. Like if I give you, I like to say example, if I give you pocket money, that's all I have. If you lose it or something happens to it, I can't give you more. And that's all I have. And I think we learn to appreciate what we have, and we learned about taking responsibility for our lives from a very young age. But things worked out. I got an opportunity to go to Pretoria Boys High. Sorry, before then, primary school, there's this dude, Marius van Heerden.
Yes.
I hope he gets to see this. We've got to find a way to get this to him.
Okay. I'll get it to you, and then you can share the link with him, hunt him down, and then send it to him, yeah.
I'd love to, because God used him in a powerful way in my life. When my dad passed away, I needed a father figure. This guy became a father figure. And traditionally back in 92, most black boys were playing soccer. And he was like, yeah, you can play soccer, but I'm going to teach you some cricket and rugby. I don't think he knew back then what he was starting, but he was birthing this that we're doing now was birthed back then. Because I mean, the first ball I bowled in cricket, Thornhill is a small primary school, it's got 2 nets. I rolled up on the left-hand net and I bowled it over the right hand. So I'm like, this is dumb. Who does this? You know, like leave, go back, play soccer, score some goals. That's a lot more fun. And he's like, no ways. Come back here. You're going to play cricket. And within 2 years, I was playing provincial cricket under 11 for Northwest. I was a wicket-keeper batsman. I had under the knee. So he's phenomenal that way. Also introduced me to rugby. Only Thornhill Primary is the only English school. Everything else is Afrikaans schools, large school, Brits, Sandrift. So you can imagine they had their way with us, you know.
Yeah.
So you got this black boy playing fly half, and then these Afrikaans kids just having a field day, you know.
Yes.
Makes you tough. But loved it. Loved that. And that opened the doors to go to Pretoria Boys Hour, where I had a sports bursary, a performance bursary. So I had to do well academically and then play A-team sports to keep the bursary. That's where I met a guy called Bill Schroeder. Phenomenal human being, Clinton. Probably one of the best leaders I've ever been under their leadership influence. I didn't realize it at the time, but he was just phenomenal. How you keep 1,500 boys in check, the teachers loving you, parents loving you. Phenomenal. Led that school for 20 years. A guy who I still speak to, because I always tell him every time, like, so you helped change my life. You helped get me to where I am now. So
That's wonderful.
So where we're now, high school. Loved that. Part of a first team rugby side that beat Affis for the first time in 18 years. To all my Affis friends, I love that story. Because literally the last time we had beaten them was 1985 when we were born.
Wow.
The year group. Yeah, so it was unbelievable. It was really cool.
Is that just a quick segue? Is that one of your highlights in terms of your own personal rugby career?
Yes. One, because the history and what it did, and then also the story leading up. So I was the first team fly starting the season, and then we lost the game to St. John's. And it's Willie Beeman's fault. Do you remember Any Given Sunday? Willie Beeman was the quarterback who did his own thing, and
Yes.
I was doing my own thing as the fly. And then we lost the game against St. John's. Paul Anthony, who's now still the coach at Pretoria Boys, said, dude, you're going to play for the second side because you're on your own mission. I need a first team fly who's going to do what the game plan is. So he was right. I mean, as a coach now, I'm like, I would have dropped myself 5 games before then, you know?
Yes.
So played second team, loved it. First I was sulking, I've got to be honest. Then I loved it. Then we were just throwing the ball around and people loved watching the second team. So the Monday before the Affis game, Paul Anthony says, hey, we need a goal kicker and I think you're going to play the Affis game. You know, you're like a 17-year-old filled with pride. So I'm looking at him and I'm trying to act hardcore, like, okay, thanks, sir. But inside I am celebrating, you know, like this is all I've ever wanted since 99 as a Form 1 in the school. And then it so happens on the day that we beat them 18-3 and I get the opportunity to kick all 6 goals. So it was stupid. It's dumb.
Jeez, that's outstanding, man.
No,
What a story.
Lekker. We still speak about it. We had our 20-on reunion last year and the boys still chatting about it and having beers over it. It was really cool.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so fast forward. What happens after that? You're in matric.
Matric, I got no idea what to do with my life. That's the part of fatherhood, not having a father, that's difficult. And I think it's that, but also me not being proactive. So luckily I did well enough academically to qualify for varsity. So on the 6th of January 2004, sorry about that, Ashley Everett, who's now with SA Rugby, was a Bulls junior coach. He phones me and he says, what are you doing with your life? I'm like, literally, I've got no idea. I'm a 19-year-old, I've got no idea. He says, well, get your backside here, go register at the University of Pretoria for something, and then come speak to me. I'll organize your bursary to train with the Bulls juniors and to go study something and stay in res. I was like, okay, flip, what a game changer. So how do you think I chose my degree, Clinton?
First in the alphabet.
Almost. We used to get M score back then. I had a 16 M score, I still remember. I went to the page where I could qualify and I went like this.
Is it?
Bam, and it landed on marketing.
Oh, really?
So they
Not a bad skill to have.
Not bad at all.
Yeah.
So that's how I went that way. Got to play junior rugby with the Bulls. Loved that. Guys like PSP, Marius Delport, all of these guys who went on to play big rugby, Willem Steenkamp, some of them, those are just some of the names. Got to be exposed to a high-performance environment. At the Bulls, then I saw how massive recruitment is because junior players came into the system, but it was a specific mold. And how you knew it was a specific mold, 5, 6, 7 years later, those guys went on to present the Bulls. So it wasn't just a happy-go-lucky, who's SA schools. It's no, we want a particular prototype because that prototype is going to go through and represent us one day. So I learned a lot about that in that environment. So winning was not willy-nilly. Willing was by design. That's
Yeah.
how it happened. That's when Heineke Meyer was in charge of the senior team and Victor Matfield, Fourie
Yeah.
Dupree. I mean, that
The
team
glory
was
days,
the
for the
glory
Bulls.
days. Indeed. So yeah, that's where we are. Then 2011. I feel awkward because it feels like I'm just talking about myself. But
That's why you're here.
okay, as long as you're comfortable with that.
Cool, man.
2011, I get an opportunity from Nico Safontaine, who also coached me at the Bulls in those glory days as one of the junior coaches. He's the director of rugby at the Lions. Mr. Gumeres just got a whole lot of money. John Mitchell is the head of rugby there. So things are happening at the Lions. I was getting an itch. I was working in a marketing office, but I could feel I'm not living my passion. I'm making ends meet, and I don't want to do that for the next 40 years of my life. So he gives me this thing. He says, you're going to be a team manager. I'm like, I'll take it, whatever. I'll sweep floors to be in a rugby environment right now. It's team manager. It's an administrative role. You make sure everyone gets where they need to be, and you do all the admin. But halfway through the year, I'm like, nobody's coaching defense, Clint. It's like 20 years back, everyone's just focused on attack, but defense, nobody's really doing it. So I used to spy on John Mitchell while he was training with the senior side, wait for him to come up to the office and say, John, okay, you did exercise A, B, and C, and D. What were the principles there? What are you learning? That's how I learned to coach defense. So the second part of the year, I was part of the coaching team then that coached the Lions under 19 side that won the national under 19 Curry Cup, and a lot of those guys represented S under 20 the next year in 2012 with Andre Pollard and those boys who won the World Rugby Championships in Cape Town. So that's where the coaching thing was birthed. So I was at the Lions for 9 years, did all the junior ranks, Curry Cup, Super Rugby final in 2018. A standout for me, though, besides the two Super Rugby final 2018, was 2016, 2017. I got to be head coach of the under-19s, along with Neil De Bruyn, Philip Lemmer, Pam Watts was the physio, and MJ was the team manager. So the five of us did our thing, and it was the first time I got to take all these leadership theories that I've got and let them come out in practice. And when it works, Clinton, I don't know what a drug is like. I don't know what something that's addictive is like, but that is addictive because they can easily stay theory. But when theory meets practice and practice works, my goodness. So
makes the hairs on your arms stand up, that kind of
the
thing.
few that I have, yes it does, 100%. So that was a taste at leadership within a sporting space, which I think something hooked in that space. Then I went through a bit of a lull, like 2018, 2019, had an incident in Aussie that happened. I hope you want to speak about it at some point.
Well, you can take me through it now if you'd like to.
I'm open to speak about it. So I was accused of sexual assault against a lady in Australia in Sydney, which was nowhere near the truth. And that's why I want to speak about it, because I don't want it to be a pink elephant wherever I go. The accusation stands against who I am as a person and what I believe. But it was challenging to go through it, because just the fact that you can be associated with something like that, that is the polar opposite of what you stand for, was challenging, So you're dealing with this thing where there's a moral sense of I've let myself and people close to me down, but then there's a legal, practical thing where you've done nothing wrong. So that thing was quite a journey for me. And the only reason why I'm bringing it up for you is that I was at the bottom of my career then. It was COVID. I was gone from being full-time with the Lions to only being a contract worker submitting invoices, where I get this phone call from Edgar Rathbone saying, listen, Jake White wants to work with you at the Bulls.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did that come out the blue?
Out the blue. There is no more definition of grace. Grace is getting something you don't deserve, or not getting the punishment that you do deserve. So I'm at the bottom of this thing. I mean, you'd think it would happen after Super Rugby final in 2018 or winning 2 championships that the Bulls would want to work with you, but it's right at the bottom where you got nothing. You're right? So that in itself is a story for one day. But thankful for that, because we got to go to the Bulls, and there for 2 years we played in 5 tournaments, all 5 in finals, 3 wins, 2 losses in finals, winning the first trophy that the Bulls had won in 12 years. I always say, somebody started school, finished primary school, finished high school, and then the Bulls won again.
Yeah. It's hectic when you put it into a school term a time frame. Hey?
Yeah, and learn so much. Jake's leadership he's so single-minded about wanting to win. That's it, he wants to win. And when he got there, the theme was 24, because he had worked out that the Bulls had won 23 trophies till that point. The next one that was going to be won was the 24th trophy. So there I learned a lot about vision and values. So if you've got such a clear vision, everybody at the Bulls involved knew 24, that's what it's about. We've got to work hard to win the 24th trophy. So that was an incredible experience with guys like Russell Winter, Nolis Murray, Pine Pienaar, Chris Rousseau. Great 2 years at the Bulls, loved it. So you're asking what brought me here down to Durban finally, and I'm tired of speaking about myself, is there was an opportunity to come lead the Currie Cup side here. And I was like, I want that. You know, just as much as it was fun winning things as an assistant, I really want to again recreate what's happened in 2016, 2017 by getting myself into a leadership role. And then we created what was become the Desperate Men. So we built a campaign that I think we won 10 out of 14 games. We lost a home semi-final to the Pumas, which was painful. It still hurts. But what was created there, I loved because it grew to something far bigger than Joey. And also people's lives got changed. There's a guy called PK who's playing for the Pumas, who was a club rugby player here, played for us, playing for the Pumas. Another guy's name is Ati, club rugby player, played for us, is playing for the Griquas. And Marku, another Marku, forget Marku's surname now on the spot, also is playing for the Griquas. So I'm glad that through a campaign, people's lives were changed. There's some players now who are playing URC who said the campaign helped revive their love for rugby.
Wow.
Man, like, is that not what life is about? Like, beyond you, influence to make other people's lives better. Like, what else do you want to exist for than to get that right? So, loved it. And then now we were in a difficult URC campaign, but things, for right reasons, a lot of change happened. And then we're fortunate enough to win the Challenge Cup, which helped a lot because I think it gave us and the people of the region hope. That they're busy doing something, and to get a trophy with it, it's almost like a bonus. You know, it's a physical thing that you can see that, hey, we're doing something right, we're on the right track. So hopefully the next season, it starts in 5 weeks' time, would be even better.
I know, it's crazy. It's rugby all year round now, it seems, hey? So we were exchanging voice notes in the build-up to this episode and this recording, and the last voice note that you sent to me struck me when you finished, and you finished by saying, let's make a difference. Okay. And on the topic of what you've just said there, the difference that you've made in the lives of the rugby players that you've come into contact with through that campaign. You could have focused on, you know, the fact that you made the semi-final, the fact that you lost, why you lost, you know, the things you learned as a coach, but you decided to draw attention to the fact of the amount of lives that you were able to change or that changed under your leadership. Why is it so important to you that you make that difference?
Because it's a lived experience. If God doesn't use Marius van Heeren in 92 to introduce me to sport, I'm not here. If Ashley Everett doesn't step out and say, here's a bursary, I'm not here. If Nico Safontaine doesn't say, come to the Lions, leave that office, I'm not here. So if three core divine interventions, call it that for lack of a better word, happen to get me here and I can influence other people, imagine the ripple effect. So if I can make a difference in one person's life and they can do the same for others, we're winning, right? The world is a better place.
Exactly.
So if you want to ask me what do I want to exist for, my purpose in life is to have as much influence as I can have. And influence won't be Joey. Influence will be a conversation and interaction with Clinton. And Clinton influences Sarah, and Sarah influences Sipho, and Sipho, then it's moving, then it grows. So that's why. It's because it's going to outlive me, and that's what I want. I want the influence that I can have to outlive me, but to have massive impact.
Yeah, I like the fact that it's legacy, and legacy is something that lasts far beyond the physical realm of where you are, and then we pass on, and we're a bag of bones, and then our spirit goes to wherever you believe it goes to. But that comes to a video that you put up on your Instagram with Denzel Washington. And I won't quote him verbatim, but he said, gifts are given to you by the grace of God. They don't belong to you as the individual. They're not yours to own. It's a gift. And you can't take it with you when you go, but you can leave it behind. And that's exactly what you're saying, is that legacy of what would you like to leave behind, both literally and figuratively, and along every step of the way at the Sharks, in life, as a father, as a husband, as a whatever. And it's the same thing with the podcast as well. Is I have to ask myself, it's nice to have your name in lights, it's nice to have the trophies, it's nice to have the recognition of lots of listens, and this episode blows up, and this and that and whatever. But the reality is, it comes down to, would I be prepared to do it if I knew that only one person would listen and one person would learn something from the episode? And if the answer is no, then pack it and sell the equipment. It's not for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It can't be about the glory all the time. It's actually not about that. It's about what is the difference that you can make. And if I'm prepared to make that difference for just one person, then that's enough for me.
Yep.
And ironically, if that's your focus, then invariably you end up having some kind of material success down the line anyway, right?
As you're talking, I was thinking that exact thing, because the naysayer or the person who's not inclined this way, who's more about the bottom line, they'll say, but then how does the world work? How do we make money? How do we do that? It's actually funny that when your focus is on the individual to make a difference to just one person, the quality that you go about doing that with often becomes sell-worthy. If that makes sense. So your bottom line is reached anyway. So it's almost like you can be, I need to reach a bottom line and focus only on bottom line. Then I think you miss on a lot. But if you say, yes, there's a bottom line, but I want to go through it in a meaningful way. Like I want to impact people, impact lives, leaving them feeling different, making different decisions, using different principles and frameworks, then that's going to happen anyway. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. It's like in coaching when I help schools, I always say to the guys, if your under 14 team can catch and pass a rugby ball, know how to tackle and fold, they're going to love rugby because they can't wait to get the ball and play. And if they do that well enough in the junior years, what do you think they can happen when it gets to first team? Their fundamentals are in place. They don't worry about winning, but they probably were winning when they're 14 and 15. But you've put in such a good foundation in them of their skill sets. By the time they get to first team, they're operating.
Yes.
Because that was your mindset, was first fundamentals. It wasn't winning, even though fundamentals will bring you winning.
Yeah.
I hope that analogy makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you speak about leadership and being in charge of a group, like a team, like a rugby side. You've started Team IP3. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So Team IP3, tell me about that.
I've had, probably since school, I like to reflect. So I always like to look back and think, why did things work and how could things get better? And I've just been fortunate enough, you think Pretoria Boys High, the Bulls, Lions, Sharks, all these places that are like high-end organizations, there's such IP lying there. I see it as gold to be able to be in there. And I'm thinking, how can we unearth this gold, give it to somebody else so they can shine? So Team IP3, the name is probably the crux, because everything I build, whether it's for leadership, whether it's for team cohesion, or whether it's for high performance, it's based on the IP. And the IP is your identity and your purpose.
So that's what the IP stands for.
That's what the IP stands for. And then the 3 is the 3 Ps. So it's identity, purpose, but then the other 2 Ps under purpose is your psyche, how you think collectively, and then your last one is the processes. And why, often if you want to help people, they think in process. So I want to be a better team, so help us team better. Okay, great. But who are you and why do you exist? Let's start there. Because once we've got that as your bedrock, we can understand, okay, you are person A and you're doing what you do to get B, that's beyond just winning or the bottom line. Now we know those things. Let's now get processes and plans and a psyche that meet that, because then we're all going in the same direction. So if that stuff can be if it can be tangible, if it can be infectious, oh wow, I'm going to work today because we exist to do A, B, and C, the process and stuff is easy. Yes.
Okay. So then let's take that back to a team scenario, because I work a lot with golfers, so professional golfers and aspiring professional golfers. It's an individual sport. So motivating the individual is different in some respects to then motivating individuals within a team where you've got 23 guys that are potentially going to play on a Saturday, They all come from different backgrounds. They might speak different languages, different ages. And how does one go about unifying that to make a cohesive unit through those principles that you've spoken about now? And how important, as a second question, is that to the success of a collective organization?
I think, Clinton, everybody is teaming. The best teams are less fragmented and more aligned and collective. That's the point of difference. So everything we do with Team IP3, we fight to define something, put it into little sections, and then use those to address the issue. So you're speaking about teaming now. So loosely would say a team is the collection of diverse individuals who are aligned around a common purpose, and then who find the appropriate balance between self and team interest.
Okay.
So if you take that, then we'd go 3 areas. We'd say, okay, there's a thing about integration, there's a piece about alignment, and there's a piece about sacrifice. So how do you go into a team? So it's the first one to say, okay, how do you take all this diversity and integrate it into something? So what was diversity for us in the Currie Cup team in 2023? You've got club players, paid players. You've got guys who've played in the URC campaign, guys who haven't played. You've got youngsters, you've got older guys. You've got all of those things. People who've just come to the Sharks, who've been to the Sharks for 10 to 15 years. All of them different, and all bring different strengths to the table. So how do you get all of that together is there needs to be such a clear North Star of where we're going. That's the first part. The second part is 2 or 3 behaviors that we say the only way we're going to get to those North Star is if we live by these 3 things. And they're so clear. Whether you've played 100 caps for us or 1 cap for you, they count for you. Here's one. So 1 week, one of the guys on our team who's a Springboks missed a physio appointment. Another one who's the starting in a key position came late for a meeting. So in that meeting, we decided if you don't live according to these values, if you're in the team, you move to the bench. If you're on the bench, you go out of the
23.
Out of the 23. So the one game, it happens on the Thursday that 2 guys do this who are critical to the thing.
In the same week?
In the same week.
Oh, wow.
Thursday, your training is done. And both were starters. So it means if that happens, they've got to drop to the bench and 2 guys have to go up who could be a club rugby player. So you could be replacing a Springbok for a club rugby player. The dilemma is this. You don't stick to your word, the team could potentially win the next game. Right? Because your Springbok starts and your starter starts. But you lose the essence of what you stand for. But if you make the brave, tough call, everyone in the room says, goodness, if that can happen to the rock star Clinton, who am I that it wouldn't happen to me? Suddenly we're all the same. Every human being, no matter where they are in life, understands fairness.
Yeah.
Right? So that was one of the key areas for me that built cohesion for us. Like, wow, this is something. That's the first part. The second part is alignment. What do you align around? Somebody said this to me one day, said, vision is telling people where they're going. So you can say, okay, Joey, we're having this thing, come meet me at Durban Country Club. That's that. Or you can say, Joey, come meet me, Durban Country Club, go to the parking lot, I'm in room 7 of this area. That is a clearer vision.
Yes.
So when that vision is that clear, I sacrifice whatever I need to sacrifice to make sure I align to that because I've bought into that thing. That would lead us into the last part, the balance between self-interest and team interest. I always used to get this wrong by thinking people must only think about the team. That's wrong. It can't be.
Yeah.
I am first, Joey, and I also have needs. So I need those needs to be met. But there are places where my needs need to submit to the team need.
Yeah.
No matter who I am.
Yeah.
And that's where the point of difference is between great and good teams. Good teams, when that decision needs to be made, some people might say, I'm going to choose me. Because it's not a worthwhile cause that I'm going, it's not big enough.
Yeah.
But the big teams will be like, no, I have to choose team here. I have to sacrifice here. Because where this team wants to go is far greater than where I want to go.
Yes.
So I would say it's in those 3 things I would answer it. I would say either lying in the integration part, in the alignment part, or in the sacrifice part.
Okay, so 2 things there. You mentioned aligning behind a common interest. how often do you consult to teams, corporates, people that you come across that are making use of your intellectual property? How often do you come across it when there isn't that common interest? Because it seems like something that's so basic, right? We must all know that this is what we're aiming for as a collective. But I don't think that it happens necessarily as often as it should happen. So how many times do organizations, in your experience, don't have that very clear common interest that unifies the people that are working there?
And I think it happens quite a bit. And one of the reasons was, this thing sticks so clear in my mind. There was an organization I went to go do this with, and we spoke about what is the purpose of the organization? What do you guys stand for? And this lady, I'll never forget her. She walked out of the room without excusing herself, looked outside and started to read on the wall what the organization stood for.
Oh.
And in that moment, first I thought, okay, I'm going to judge her. Then I thought, no, I'm not going to judge her. I appreciate her honesty. And secondly, she's probably saying, there's too many words out there for me to remember what we stand for.
Yeah.
So how do you want that from the cleaner to go all the way through to the CEO? But if we said our organization stands for, we want to be punctual. I'm just putting 3 words out there.
Yeah.
We want to be welcoming and excellent. That's all we stand for in this organization. Those are poor examples, but anyways, see them. So no matter who walks through the front door, from the security guard, they know they're responsible to make sure that somebody feels welcome. That's my space. I have to do that. And if somebody needs to rush through the security system because they want to be punctual, we'll help them with that because we know that's one of our critical few.
Yeah.
So without butchering this analogy anymore, it's the idea of, if you can have critical few things that you align around, then it's powerful. I often at this point show them a video of Jose Mourinho with a ball boy when I think he was still with Tottenham. A ball goes out of play. The ball boy gets out, throws the ball in quickly to a Tottenham player who throws it in, and they score as a direct result. Jose Mourinho goes afterwards to the post-match conference and he says, that is an exceptional ball boy. He did a great job, but in Jose's style, he first said how good a ball boy he was when he was 16 years old. But anyways, that's a side note. He's awesome. I love him. So I always use that example and say, imagine the ball boy is the lowest person in your organization. And I say that respectfully.
Yes.
And Jose, and the player scoring, and Jose is your CEO. They are so aligned of Tottenham having to throw in quickly that it helped them win a Champions Cup game or Champions League game.
Yes.
So similar in your organization, if you only got critical few behaviors that you're measuring, from the tea lady all the way to the CEO, we can judge that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I got you. Tell me, how difficult is it to find that common interest? Because let's say you're working from nothing. Okay, you come in there as a coach, you're working with a rugby team, you're starting from scratch, blank canvas. You've got these men around you from varying backgrounds, ages, experiences, etc. How do you go about setting that platform then for, okay, guys, what is it that we stand for? What are those 3 things, 1 thing, 2 things? Do you put it to the group? Do you say what's important to you, what's important to you? How do you start with something and then filter it down to eventually you've got those 3 basic values, core values?
My belief is that it starts with the leader.
Okay.
So if I'm super clear on my identity and my purpose, then I fight to rally a team around not the specifics, but that ballpark in that area.
Okay.
Right. So for me, like having grown up in Pretoria, done Pretoria Boys High, Bulls, that formed a lot of who I am as a person. And that is like being on time. You know, like the strict regiment part is part of who I am and what I do. So that's always going to be in a team that I lead,
yes,
if that makes sense. Then there's always going to be a certain element of relationalness, like whether it's speaking about spiritual stuff, family stuff. I like that because I believe that's how you unearth something out of people. So those 2 things, wherever I go, like a hard-nosed, disciplined team and a relational team, there might be other things. Those I will not compromise on, right? Like, because that I will naturally live those out well because that's who I am. So I'm leading a team from a place of my identity and my purpose.
Gotcha.
Once I think you've got that framework, then I think you can allow leaders into that space to say, for this context, what does that look like? So it's a bit of freedom and form. So the form comes from, this is the ballpark we're walking in. The freedom is, what does it look like for you guys? Because I know people who are out there like, yeah, make it to the room, understand that. There's a study that was done around freedom and form. They had kids play in an area where it was a forest area, like the field in the middle, forest, and they let the kids play. They said, you can play wherever you want to play. The kids ran around, but they kind of congregated around the middle because it felt safe. The next day, they put a fence between.
Yes, I've read that study.
100%.
Yeah,
right?
Beautiful.
The kids go insane. They're everywhere. They're climbing. Well, all that happened was somebody brought form to the freedom, and it gave them even more freedom. So that's what I'm saying about this. You can't on day one say blank canvas, what are we going to stand for? I mean, the guy who's laissez-faire says, let's all be laissez-faire. The guy who's strict and from Pretoria says, let's be strict. So, but I think if you say, hey, here's a ballpark, we're in this area, let's discuss what that looks like here. I think you get both buy-in and you give the team direction, a direction that is suited to who you are. And so, yes, you might have situations where you don't have a choice, right? You go to a team that's already that way. I would say, the first thing I would do going to any organization is figure, are my values aligned to their values, right?
Okay.
And it's never an exact match.
No.
But then I've got to figure out, can I live with the difference between our value sets? Because if I can't, I might have to take the decision that I can't. But if I'm desperate for the job, I take the job knowing that I'm going to be frustrated to a certain degree because they stand for things that don't fully agree with who I am. But I go in there knowing it.
Got you.
Yeah.
I understand. So I think that speaks to one of my fundamentals and my values that I live by is it always starts with the individual. And I'm a firm believer of that. And one of my fundamentals is accountability. And accountability always starts with the individual. It starts with me. I'm responsible for being on time. I'm responsible for saying what I mean, meaning what I say. I'm responsible for those things. And it must be decided, I need to look at, say, okay, what is important to me? Let me make sure that I've got those in play. And once I've done that, it becomes infectious. And that's how people then want to gravitate to you as the individual because you're standing and representing these values through your actions. And that's how things start to change, and that's how customs or cultures in an organization starts to change. So like, for example, I've got a client of mine who put us in touch, Odwa. This goes back to his rugby playing days. He always arrives for his training session maybe 15 minutes early, 10 minutes early. If he arrives on time, it means he's running 15 minutes late. And that's the work ethic, and that's something that he stands for, and that is a decision that the individual's made, which then in turn impacts the people around them. And I think that is such a crucial thing because I've seen it in my professional athletes as well. Very quick to shift the blame for them not taking accountability for where they've dropped the proverbial ball. Easy to say late because of traffic, or late because of this, or not on time because of that, or sorry, my tea time ran late, or the excuses are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not about that. What do you stand for as an individual? There's a lovely story of a guy, he's had trouble keeping his cool on the golf course.
Like most, yeah.
Like most, yeah. But he's an aspiring professional golfer. He's young, high school. And, you know, he's trying to find his feet in the world, just like we all were at that age. But it's getting to the point where it's detrimental to his golf scores. He's not able to let a bad shot go. And so he talks me through his round, and they played a 36-hole tournament on the one day. And then there were parents that were chatting. And then it happened the first time, happened the second time. And then he could hear them chatting on his backswing. Okay. And then the third time, it happened like he was deep into the back nine of the final round, and he missed the green with a wedge. And again, it was the same thing. And then he threw his club and he took away. He said, "Can you guys please keep quiet?" Like he told them off. And he said, yeah, Clint, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And I said to him, you're wrong.
Sure.
He said, no, but they were talking. I said, it's not about them. It's about what you stand for as an individual. You can't control whether or not they speak on your backswing. You let yourself down by behaving badly. You let them get to you. You can't control their actions. You can control yours. You made a decision that you were going to allow that to get to you and you were going to behave poorly. Under no circumstances is that acceptable if you are wanting to make a career out of what you are wanting to do as a golfer. There's no situation where that is acceptable behavior. And that is accountability in its truest form. There's nothing, because once you give yourself an inch, 4 months later you're taking a mile. You know, you talk about setting a precedent with values. Once you compromise on that, and I'd be interested to come full circle after my story. Did you drop those players, those two players that compromised on the values?
100%.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the response from the team like? Firstly, and then the individuals secondly.
But hold on to your story because I want to hear the rest of that story, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll finish that.
Yeah,
So
let's do that.
he conceded that was something that he needed to work on. And I said to him, pal, it's always about what you stand for as an individual. You have the decision to make. And that's the same with anything in life. Sometimes you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it. That's what the majority of these books are about, these guys that are Holocaust survivors, etc. Under the most extreme conditions, they were able to decide and take power to within themselves, and you can bring it all the way back to a religious context as well, and what do I stand for? God, Jesus, etc. That no matter what happens externally to me, I keep my power because I'm always in full control of the decisions that I make and how I speak to myself and my actions. Once I've let somebody else influence how I behave, I've now given that power away. It's gone out the window.
Yeah.
And, well, the proof will be in the pudding. Let's see see how long that pep talk lasts. But, yeah,
I think it's such a good, hard truth. Like there's, as you're speaking, I think there's 101 ways you can justify his behavior. And the minute you start to justify it, know that you're moving from the highest level of performance lower than that.
Yeah.
Right? So you still perform, but you'll never go to where you're supposed to have gone if you give yourself the way out.
Yeah.
So I'm with you fully. And I just recently read a thing on that control thing. They had 3 circles about control. The middle one was, what can I control? So he could have controlled, like you say, his shots, his breathing, whatever he needs to do that. The circle outside of that was the circle of influence. So what are things that I can do something about, knowing though that the other person's behavior might not change? So he might have gone to somebody saying, listen, those people keep speaking about backswing, can you let them know to walk further back, whatever. But knowing that at least I've tried to do something about it, whether they do speak in the backswing or not is not in his control. But at least he's done something to try influence the situation. Then the last one is like, I can do absolutely nothing about it. That's where I've got to acknowledge it, park it, put it away, and then take all that energy of worry and concern and put it back in the circle of control. That's what I can do something about, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that I learned that I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm going to use that somewhere. Here I'm using it for the first time.
Exactly. There we go. So, what was the response like from the team? What was the response like from the individuals?
This was quite deep into the season, probably round 2 of the Currie Cup last year. And because we had already built this in, nobody was surprised. So that's the thing. So none of the players felt, well, I'm one of the best guys in the team. I'm not playing. I was like, okay, I take it because I've seen you do it consistently. The team is used to this behavior, and to the team was just affirmation. It's like that's what we do. We said we're going to do something. It happens, we do it, irrespective of who you are. And I still think that's the big thing. If there's a way in a team where everybody's cut under the same cloth, there's something so powerful again. Somebody told me it's equal but not the same. So we all still fall under the same rules, but it's slightly different. So the way you would bring your principle across to Eben is slightly different to the way you do corner roll, because Reynolds, in his first season of professional rugby, Eben is the best rugby player in the world. They still cut under the same cloth, but your application of how you're getting the team principle across to them differs, if that makes sense.
Got you.
Because people can see that difference. Like, hey, it's not the one's getting away with it or not. It's just the way you're addressing it. It looks slightly different because of what they've earned to be in that team. I think that's another dynamic that people can think about as well.
Okay, so that's an important thing. I wanted to get to this part, is delivering of harsh truths in a team environment. How do you go about delivering those harsh truths? Does it vary individual to individual on how you give that message to that person? Does timing make a difference? How do you go about delivering something with the intention of having a win-win scenario?
Good one, because we have to do it often. Every Monday there's a review of a game that happened on Saturday, so this happens regularly. So it's a place where I try to study and look at different options. The little bit I've got to be in a Springbok training camp or in the Springbok area with a guy like Rassie Erasmus, incredibly honest and real in front of the group. He's just telling you his truth, and you must deal with it, right? And it's not in a malicious way. He's just honestly telling the truth. And the benefits of that is that the whole group knows. There isn't a private meeting where I took Clint aside and told him what he needed to hear, and then the group is wondering, but was he kept accountable for his behavior or not? In that way, everyone knows you are kept accountable, no matter who you are in the pecking order. So I think that's good. Where that could be detrimental, some people can't handle that truth in the context of the team. So that's where the opposite side of that, there could be, right? So I think that's the one. The other one where you could almost pre-warn somebody that it's coming. So if I say, Clinton, listen, you must try saving tackles on a principle that we stand for. I'll let you know in the morning that in the meeting I'm going to come after you. Because I have to do that for the team to know. I think that's an authentic way of warning someone. You know, it's like almost like picking a team and then letting you know, Clinton, you're not playing this week. I'm letting you know ahead of time because you're a regular starter. I'm still being honest and laying the team in front, but I've warned you because I know it might be an area of sensitivity for you.
Okay.
And I think that's quite an interesting one, because I think there's a way there where you are being authentic, still telling the truth in front of the team, but the person affected knew that it was coming.
Yeah, so it's not like there's that ambush.
Yep.
They feel like they're being ambushed and caught off guard.
Yep. But I still, my leaning is towards the absolute truth, though. Like, I lean towards the telling the truth in front of the group because it's open cards. It leaves no place for chit-chatter. And there's nothing that'll kill a team more than chit-chatter, especially if it's fair chit-chatter, because they're chit-chatting about, hey, the last time Sam did this, he was addressed in front of people, and he had to deal with it. But when it's Clinton, it's slightly different, right? But if you're consistent in that, so I think that's what the having it in front of the group helps you with. It's that side, but I would definitely have it. I think it's important to have. Sorry, I had another thought, but I'll remember it on that. Yeah.
Okay. What does... You mentioned something I saw a couple of your videos on social media. You spoke about sacrifice in the team environment, and you said that the difference between good teams and great teams is the great teams know how to sacrifice appropriately. What does that mean in the context of performance?
Yes. I'm going to do something that's probably not podcast-like. The thought on the previous one, about the giving the feedback thing.
Yes.
The environment you are in matters as well. So if your environment is very much a growth mindset environment where we take mistakes as an ability to learn, and you've got a review model that's helping people to understand it's okay to be vulnerable. There's this, I forget the book, but I have to share this because it's unbelievable. They did a study between aviation and medical fields, and why, like, almost nobody dies in the air, but a whole lot of people die medically. So what they found that in the medical fraternity, if you make a mistake, often people will go write a report almost justifying why it happened, and then that thing stays silent. People sign non-disclosures, whatever. So what happens is then people often die from the same thing, because we weren't willing to come out in the open and share it. Why? Because I'm a doctor, I'm super clever, I studied 10, 15 years. How could I ever make a mistake? Just saying it in that raw form, in the probably insensitive form. With the guys in aviation, if you make a mistake, it's like you get rewarded for acknowledging your mistake. So even if nothing detrimental happens and you come forward and you say, hey, I was the flight attendant, I missed A, B, and C, I just want to report it. You get rewarded for that action.
Yes.
If something goes wrong, they write a full-scale report, somebody comes in, lays it all open, they share it with everyone. So we can all learn and say, we're never going to make the mistake again. So imagine sitting on a Monday in front of a team review or a work review of a sales team, and everyone knows I can put my hand up and say, hey, I got that wrong.
Yeah.
And it'll be received of, yes, there'll be accountability, but more than accountability, we'll be like, hey, we appreciate that. We're learning from that. Suddenly in your environment, when you have a conversation with someone about their performance, they're saying, it's not just for Clinton, it's for the next guy and the next guy so they don't make the same mistake. So I think that environmental, the type of environment, a growth mindset or fixed mindset makes a difference to the type of feedback that you'd give to a team.
Okay, that makes sense, and that's very valuable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you, I was going to speak about the sacrifice.
Yes.
Asked you about difference between good and great teams. What does sacrificing appropriately mean?
Again, a step back. If I'm in a team that's got such a clear vision of where they're going, that sacrifice is made easier.
Okay.
Because we all, like I said earlier, we've got needs and we've got desires and we've got career paths that we want to advance. But at any given time, what you want and what the team needs won't match. So a simple way in sport is if you're in a squad of 43 and we've got to choose 23 players for a final, what I want is I'm not in that team, but I want to be in that team. How I respond now will say a lot about me and about a lot of the group, because that team is announced on a Monday. That we're only going to play on Saturday. So there's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday before we play. If I don't sacrifice, and I don't have enough reason to sacrifice, I'm going to say, why are they playing Clinton ahead of me? I played better than him. In training session, I'm going to go out of my way to disrupt them so they don't look great, and I show how good I am. The opposite is also true. You are so sold on why or where the team is going that you're saying, it hurts me, you are human, I wish I had played, but I'm going to do everything in my power to help Joey prep as well as possible, because this team winning ultimately is me winning as well.
Yeah.
So there's an organizational element to that. So if what you stand for, the IP, is not great, I think it's tough to be sacrificial.
Yes.
Because what am I sacrificing for, right? There's no deeper, greater good. But if the greater good is really depth and it's got meaning and we stand for something, when I'm tempted to be selfish, I at least have something pulling me back and saying, oh, there's something better. This is good in a way. It's not just all bad, if that makes sense. So I would say then the great teams have such a strong IP, like a sense of belonging and a sense of what do we stand for, that it becomes easier for the individuals to sacrifice. I'll make an example. I was chatting to Grant Williams about his experience at the Springboks. He only played some of the games, didn't play all of them. But he said they've got a way in that environment to make you feel so even when you're not playing, that you feel part of the win. So when they play France, his job was to be Antoine Dupont. So the whole week, he trained like him, he did exercise like him, he studied him, because they helped him see the way you prepare us will help us win. So when Grant Williams is sitting in the stands and something that Antoine Dupont did and he mimicked on Tuesday and Thursday works out, he's like, man, I was a part of this thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Jeez, that's amazing.
It's incredible, because otherwise you just drop him and then he's watching, actually hoping you lose. Like, I don't care, I'm not invested, I'm not a part of this thing. So I think it's, yes, you spoke about accountability. It's on the individual, but more than individual, it's on the organization. The organization has to give people something worthy enough to help them make a better decision around whether they want to sacrifice or not.
Yeah, I love that, Jay. That's very, very cool. Thanks. Something that I ask a lot of my guests, and it's a left field question because it's one of my favorite questions I like to ask myself. Is there anything that you've changed your mind on recently?
Yes.
What's that?
I grew up learning how to coach defense under a guy called John McFarlane, incredible guy, coached everywhere, coached with Hanneke Meyer at the 2015 World Cup, and he's still coaching now, and watching a Jacques Nienaber who was with the Stormers, who were very much a line integrity focused defensive system. So they're like, we don't care about how hard we get off the line, it's all about connection and all about a tackle fight. So those teams are hard to break down. If you're looking for an example, it's how the Irish defend. So when you watch the Ireland play New Zealand in the World Cup quarterfinal, they kept the ball for like 20, 30 phases because the defense is so organized, if that makes sense, and connection focused above line speed. Having now walked into an environment where you've got 10 Springboks who won 2 World Cups with a rush defense, you've got a choice to make, right? Do you say, I'm going to do what I've always been doing? Or do you say, I'm going to do what they are doing? Or you can say, how do I make these two worlds work together? Which principles of a connected defensive system can be applied in a more rush defense-like system to create something that I can fully buy into? Because again, on identity, if I just say, okay, we've got 10 Springboks in our team, I'm going to coach a rush defense, but I don't really believe in it, I don't really know how to coach it, I won't be authentic trying to get people to sacrifice their bodies.
Yeah.
But if I study it and I ask Lucanio, what do you think? And my Pimpy, what do you think? And Grant, what do you think? And we have these discussions and I'm like, oh, that's interesting because that principle that was here counts for here. Let's do something about it. Well, we're both growing. So I'm in a place where I'm excited about where we're going defensively because there's a way to take some of what I've known and loved and has brought success to this that might take us to a different level. I think put that down to a growth mindset.
I love that. What a wonderful way to finish on that note, Joey. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to follow your journey, they want to follow Team IP3, where can they do so? How can they get hold of you? I'll attach the links in the show notes as well for the people listening at home.
Great question, and I'm not so good at this area yet. So I've only just recently gone back onto Instagram. I think my handle is at Joey Mongalo, all small letters. So I'm doing 1 or 2 things on that space, and then probably the main platform is my LinkedIn profile. So it's just Joey Mongalo. That's where I like to operate. Those are the 2 main ones. So
and then the website, of course, Team IP3.
Yes, www.teamip3.co.za is the one.
Wonderful, man. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for all the great work that you're doing and the difference that you're making in the people's lives that you come into contact with. And like you said, these touch points of influence that change the course of individuals. Hopefully this podcast, when people listen, has a similar effect on 1 or 2 people. So thank you again. Good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much, Clinton, and thank you for the space. And I love just the heart with which you are doing this. So keep fighting to make a difference in that one, and hopefully that can be multiplied into thousands and tens of thousands and millions.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Not so fast. It is such a cool feeling when I see that Spotify subscribers number increase on the weekly, when I see the number of people listening to the episodes going up, and it really makes a huge difference. Have you ever done something and you feel so good when you get rewarded by some positive feedback and you really feel like you're making a difference? That's what it means to me, and that's how I feel. And it goes a long way. If you like the show, share it and subscribe it. Thank you humbly, and I'll see you next week.